Hello, welcome to Quantified Software. I wanted to give you a little of a bio of myself so you understood my software experiences and what I have seen on my journey through my professional career. So let's start off. Quantified Software. This is Cam Lassiter. Early days. I grew up in Silicon Valley. I had two parents who were self-employed. They started their own businesses and played with computers early on in my schooling career. Dropped out in high school, but I went to install networks. I got a job in the first .com boom installing networks and later as an NT system administrator. But I felt like there was something missing for me. I wanted more. And that's why I went back to school and I got an electrical and computer engineering degree at Carnegie Mellon University. Specialized in computer architecture, I describe it as how you design computers. So the memory systems, the processor, and the interconnects. How do you make supercomputers out of a collection of a lot of smaller computers? C languages, Verilog, fascinating hardware design language, Java, StarNix, CVS, kind of the standard tooling at the time. Right out of college, I joined a Fintech startup, early engineer through IPO, so saw a real great growth ramp. Depending on how you count QA, at the time we had a process that was based on rational unified process, or RUP, but as it was starting to blend towards Agile, the Agile manifesto hadn't come out yet, but we were getting early feedback from engineers on what they saw. So I left as a software architect. We were doing quarterly releases, so roughly 3 to 4 releases with a few point releases a year. And the tech stack, Java, Struts, it was early on in Struts, Apache JBoss on the front end, Oracle on the back end, managed through CVS. Build tools were Ant and Cruise Control. IDE was IntelliJ. Founded a company in the GovTech space. Did 2 institutional rounds after a friends and family round. So got the experience of raising money for a software company. Built a first MVP in a weekend. I saw it scale from 1 engineer to about 12. So again, roughly in that 3 doublings, deploying feature branches directly into production. So we had a system that we built that allowed us to deploy previews of certain feature branches as named tags into production. So really doing a very different deployment style than at the previous merge to deploy, tens of minutes. And I took many titles there. So worked a lot on what some people would call the business side. So COO, CFO, was responsible for customer success at one point, all of finance. So broad range of responsibilities there. Not as much hands on the keyboard. We were a Ruby on Rails shop with Nginx and Postgres in the back end, AWS and Git, Ember, and we also had mobile apps, so iOS, Android. The next was a legal data company. I was the CEO of this startup that was a spin out from university. I joined the team when it was about 6 people. 3 of those were on the engineering side. I brought what I would have called best practices for CI/CD for building software, and it's well described in the standard model. WIP constraints, automated testing, automated deploy, lead time down from weeks or months into days. We would do multiple deployments inside of a week by the time I left. And we use several JavaScript front-end frameworks, back-end of MongoDB, Git, and I say GitHub here because started to really utilize some of the tooling around GitHub's webhooks to enable a CI/CD process, tooling to support quality, code coverage, those types of things. And then build orchestration through Jenkins. The last company I was at, we were a mortgage document processing startup. I saw the engineering team grow from about 3 to 19. Again, how you count this, we got acquired, so the company was more than 19 engineers. We spun up some other teams that were ancillary. But again, roughly 3 doublings. Seeing this 3 doublings is a recurring theme in my career. I oversaw a deployment of a CI/CD system. We averaged around 1.5 deployments per engineer per week by the time I left, averaged over the last few months. And as well, we saw the lead time from branch creation to deployment into production bouncing around between 1.5 to 2.5 days. And we migrated from mostly serverless to fully serverless. Also migrated off of a Jenkins 1.0 orchestration system to a 2.0 orchestration system through to fully serverless with code build and code pipeline on AWS. AWS, that was really cornerstone of what we were doing. Again, the GitHub, a lot with those built-in apps from third parties, as well as utilizing webhooks to drive activity. We were pretty polyglot. We had Python, Java, Node.js, code build, and of course everything sort of wired together through Bash. And then IDEs, Atom, and VS Code. And so those are some of the little data points on the side notes. So gaps, where have I sort of not seen things, and where do I feel like I have some question marks in my experience? So I've never been responsible for product. So I've never been there inventing what we were going to build and then prioritizing which thing we were going to build first for the business value. I gave comments, I gave feedback as suggestions, but never had that as my area of ownership. I'd never been on teams of hundreds of engineers. Thinking about large scale companies where the single product or single service has multiple teams, maybe the team size is small, but that where the full engineering department is counted in the hundreds, and they're all pulling towards that same goal. I've never been responsible for hundreds of engineers. I've had tens of engineers report to me. Definitely have a gap when on the large scale software, and I've never seen hypergrowth, doublings in the range of like 6 months. So that's sort of a little bit about me, what my journey has been, what I have seen in my technical career. Why am I doing quantified software? And I've seen the standard model, and I've developed in that current standard model, and I've even brought it into companies. I've seen also the tremendous waste in software projects. Software is so essential. It brings so much value, yet it seems like we do it so poorly. I also fundamentally believe that software is too hard to build. So what I'm looking for with quantified software, if we're looking for what is next, what is the next best practice that is not currently described in the standard model? Right now, so much of software is so manual. It's an artisan process, and we want to make it more automated. It's too fragile. It seems that anytime there's even a minor change, it could cause a whole cascading change set for software. And yes, there are best practices for why that's maybe a poor design, but oftentimes you don't know that it's something you want to change until it's time to change it, and then you find that it's too fragile and it's too custom. So many times at all of these different organizations, I found us solving the same problems over again. Yes, there wasn't a tool off the shelf that we could use that would fit in exactly the feature set or in the exact boundaries that we were looking for, but that's exactly the point. Why did we have such similar needs, but such custom needs for the implementation? And it's too ephemeral. If you build a house, it sticks around. It's an implementation that lasts tens, if not hundreds of years. You build a road and you expect to capitalize it over, 10 or 20 years. You buy a refrigerator, you expect it to last for 7 years. But you build custom software engineered for the problem that you have. And the software I've seen, it seems like you should capitalize it over maybe a 3-year time frame. Feels like there's something that we're doing that's wrong, that most software gets written off and deprecated so quickly. It's too expensive. I think everybody can agree that building software is too expensive. We'd like it to be cheaper. And if we made it cheaper, the demand would increase. So that's what I've seen. That's why I'm here. And that's what I'm looking for. This is Quantified Software.